Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight live on KMTV. I'm Megan Shaw and here are your top stories on Tuesday the 16th of December. Fighting back. Medway School traffic fine revoked for inadequate signage.
Where is the proof that school streets are anything other than a cash cow?
Help us or we'll end up in the river. 800-year-old Canterbury building at threat of being washed away as charity calls for public support.
I think historically there is so much here that it would be heartbreaking if this building were to close permanently.
And still going strong. We take a look at the independent shops keeping the high street alive following Small Business Saturday.
We bring vibrance, we bring something different, it's exciting, we can pivot faster than the big boys, so there's always something new going on.
A Medway man has fought back against a fine he blames on Medway Council's inadequate signage, with the tribunal ruling in his favour. Chris Lee says that he wasn't aware Richmond Road was pedestrianised at school pick-up times until it was too late. Medway Council say that their signage is legally compliant, but the decision could open up a pathway to appeal for thousands, as our local democracy reporter Ollie Leader has been finding out.
You might have seen one of these signs if you've been driving around Medway, warning you away from driving near certain schools at peak times when the roads there become pedestrianised. That is, if you can spot them. For Chris Lee, a lack of signs along Saunders Street meant he was hit with a fine, which he says was not his fault.
If you're not aware of something being there and there's no road signage on the road that you're travelling down before you get to a place where you can pick up a penalty notice, then yeah, it's a bit of a shock, but you then think to yourself, well, did I make a mistake? I need to check this out because I don't think that there's something right here.
Well, I got behind the wheel myself to take the same route as Chris and see what warnings there were for the school street.
So, just on the right here, is Saunders Street. This is the road Chris drove down and said there wasn't adequate signage warning him there's going to be a school street right at the end. As you can see, lots of cars, lots of vehicles, not a lot of signage for the school street. In fact, I can't see any warnings at all as we drive down here. We're coming up to the stop line now. You should be able to get a better look at the sign as we come up here. It should just about come into view. That right there is the only warning for coming from this direction that there is a school street along here.
Well, a reasonable person is not going to be looking at lampposts for every single sign. If it's overwordy, by the time you've even got halfway down it, you've gone past it.
It took Chris 2 months since getting the fine for him to receive this letter from the Traffic Penalty Tribunal, notifying him that his penalty notice had been overturned. And the adjudicator here doesn't mince any words. It says that sign right behind me, that is complicated and did not adequately convey that Richmond Road would become a school street.
Yeah, so look, I'm getting lots of feedback that some of the signage is opaque at best. It's not entirely clear when you're entering a school street scheme. This scheme is all about raising money. It's not about improving the lives of residents.
Medway Council say they have successfully defended a number of appeals at this location. And this is the first in which an adjudicator has found against them on signage grounds. They say that while they will review the adjudicator's decision, they remain satisfied that the signage at this site is adequate and compliant with the relevant legal standards, and will continue to review feedback to ensure the scheme operates effectively. But none of that will be a sign that gives people like Chris confidence their concerns are being heard. Ollie Leader in Medway.
And Ollie Leader joins me in the studio now. So Ollie, could this lead to fines across Medway being overturned?
It depends on the situation, I think, with this one. It's a big question motorists at home will have, because school streets have been a massively contentious issue in the five towns. Let's take a quick look at the data that we've obtained about the school street fines. 24,673 fines issued across 12 school street zones since the first rule was introduced in March last year. Lots of fines, and of those, only 2,706 were appealed by motorists, but only 330 were successfully overturned, which is quite a tiny number in the grand scheme of things. But Chris believes that the tribunal process, which took him around 2 months, is quite a long process, requires lots of evidence, is quite time intensive, not something all motorists are going to do. So there might be more appeals that could have actually happened. Ultimately, this will come down to the route people take. If you've been giving loads of warnings, there's loads of signs telling you that you're heading down a school street, you're probably going to get a fair fine for flaunting the rules. But if you're someone like Chris, who's gone down a road that doesn't necessarily have all those warning signs you would expect, you might be in with a chance. It does raise questions about whether traffic regulations along those routes are being met. But the council do insist they are being legally compliant with their signage here in Medway.
And Ollie, we've not got much time, but do tell us, what is next for the scheme?
It's not going anywhere. It's making lots of money for the council. They say it's a positive thing for the town, protecting people in the local area, and there are potential new school streets on the way. They're being considered at the moment, around 3 in fact, as well as 1 with a date to be decided too. So it's not going anywhere, even if people like Chris would hope it is.
Ollie, thank you so much. Now, travel chaos for motorists today as a crash has closed the M20 on the first day of Operation Brock being put into action. Motorists have been queuing for hours after a van struck the inside barrier, and this isn't the only traffic misery expected in the coming days as highways brace for high volumes of traffic from the port of Dover. But the Kent and Medway Resilience Forum, which manage these traffic flow measures, say they're necessary to keep Christmas traffic in check.
Kent and Medway Resilience Forum received data from both Eurotunnel and the Port of Dover when there is a holiday period of forecasted bookings. And from that, we can assess what the likely possible impact is going to be on the road network in and around East Kent specifically. This time around, Port of Dover have shown that Friday and Saturday are going to be very busy down at the port. It's a very busy freight time as well, because an awful lot of the HGVs are heading back to Europe as well for Christmas, as well as all the tourists heading over to Europe.
Now, a Canterbury charity is in a race against time to save a historic building from collapsing into the River Stour. Eastbridge Hospital was once a place for poor pilgrims to rest their heads, and over the years has been used as a school and then a museum. But as the group in charge told our reporter Chloe Brewster, it needs hundreds of thousands even of pounds in renovations to keep it in use for future generations.
If we don't do something now, then it's going to be so much greater of a problem later. And as I say, it would be an enormous loss to the history of Canterbury and of Kent.
Nestled in the heart of Canterbury High Street sits a building with hundreds of years of history. Through this low Gothic door lies former accommodation for poor pilgrims desperate to visit the shrine of Archbishop St Thomas Becket, who was murdered in the cathedral in 1170. But now these ancient sleeping quarters have had to close for visitors. I received access to the oldest part of the hospital, the former dormitory, to talk about why.
The building is rotating into the river, not to put it too finely. The reality is that this building has always been falling in the river, and it's just a question of whether that fall is accelerating or not. We are working with Canterbury Archaeological Trust and with structural engineers to try and make sure that this is a building that will be here for future generations and not, sadly, something that falls into the river.
I'm stood just outside the Eastbridge Hospital alongside the River Stour. You can see just behind me there, if you look towards the bay window and down, you can see that brickwork that's experiencing damage over the 800 years this place has been open.
The charity says that renovations to make the building safe for visitors again could cost up to £250,000.
We used to get probably in a season in this building, we used to get just over 10,000 people, which obviously now we've been closed for over a year. So it's had a massive impact on the finances of the charity, which is why we're now finding we can't afford to pay for the renovations and all the work that needs doing down here in the Undercroft. We're that unknown little gem in the high street that people have heard of but maybe not been to for a long time. But I think historically there is so much here that it would be heartbreaking if this building were to close permanently and the charity finished. It just wouldn't be, it's not conceivable.
Historic England has agreed to place the charity on their at-risk register, helping it towards securing grant funding for the future. But yet still, the charity say they need public support to help prevent the history here being washed away. Chloe Brewster for KMTV in Canterbury.
A Faversham councillor has claimed online misinformation played a role in the shocking displays of abuse and vandalism at a Swale council meeting. This here is the aftermath of a meeting where councillors discussed making Swale a district sanctuary for asylum seekers, which saw 50 protesters swarm the building. But Liberal Democrat councillor Hannah Perking, who put forward the motion, slammed their behaviour, saying that the damage meant vulnerable residents couldn't access services, with the building being forced to close the day after. And that's all for now, but coming up after the break, we sit down with our health expert, Dr. Julian Spinks, on the eve of residents' doctor strikes as the super flu rips across Kent. We've also got our Invictus Sports producer, Finn McDermott, catches up on the sport news. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon. Welcome back to Kent Tonight live on KMTV. Tomorrow, resident doctors across Kent are to join a 5-day strike to campaign for wage increases. This comes at the same time as the so-called super flu is sweeping across the nation. As a result, the Prime Minister has labelled the timing of the strike action as irresponsible and dangerous. And we spoke to the Chief Medical Officer at NHS Kent and Medway, Kate Langford, about the rise in flu cases.
So obviously winter's a very busy time of year usually, but this year we have seen flu come earlier and we're not seeing as many people having had their vaccinations as we'd like. So we are seeing more people who are sicker with flu. The numbers in our hospitals have been going up and that means that we've got that added pressure as well as coping with the industrial action that's going on. So what I'd say to anyone who's in the groups eligible for a vaccine who hasn't had it yet, please get yourself protected.
And I'm joined in the studio by our health expert, Dr. Julian Spink. So, Julian, resident doctors across England, formerly known as junior doctors, are set to strike for 5 days from tomorrow. So, as a doctor yourself, can you explain why?
Yes, the main thing is that actually income has fallen compared with the rest of the population quite a lot over the last 10 years. Last year they had a multi-year deal which gave 29%, which sounds a lot, but it didn't even bring them out halfway up to the point of being back at the same place as everybody else. So they're asking for more. The other side was that they are concerned about the career structure. There are a lot of junior doctors who are qualifying and then not actually being able to get jobs.
And this does follow a government's last-minute offer, which includes having things like out-of-pocket expenses paid for, like exam fees, and increasing specialty training posts. So why was this not enough for resident doctors across Kent and the rest of the country?
I think absolutely they are a good thing to have. Some of the things they announced, actually they'd already announced before. So, for example, favouring English graduates was announced back in June. So, as part of an offer, it wasn't really anything. But I think if they'd given a small amount in the way of a financial increase, or maybe a package over a number of years, then they would have been more likely to persuade the resident doctors not to go ahead with the strike, because it is going to put pressure on the NHS.
And as we mentioned before, there has been a bit of government backlash, so the PM called that irresponsible and dangerous to strike, especially the run-up to Christmas, and we do seem to be dealing with a super flu. So what is the argument here that resident doctors, it's almost, I suppose, not a choice for them?
Yes, I'm a little suspicious at linking the resident doctor strike and flu. As if you look at the number of beds that are affected at the moment, it's less than 3% of the total NHS beds. Actually, bed blocking by not being able to get elderly people back out home is a bigger problem in the NHS than potentially the flu. And resident doctor strikes, we've got much better at dealing with them anyway.
And straight off the back of that super flu there, can you tell us about it? Because we seem to just have a new flu every year. And what separates this new kind of flu strain that's circulating from your average, I don't know, your H1N1?
It's a really clever little virus. It mutates, it changes continuously, and that's why every year the vaccine we give out is slightly different. This time round it's H3N2 subclade K, which doesn't really tell you anything, but it's no more dangerous than other flus, but it's much easier to transmit. And what we've had this year is two things. One is that the flu season is starting earlier and took off a little sharper. The other thing is we have stories from the Far East, such as Japan and Australia, where they've had very bad flu seasons, and normally that tends to follow with us. Finally, this concern about the number of people who are not taking up the offer for flus, because we only really offer it to people who are at much greater risk of being admitted to hospital or becoming seriously ill or die.
And I've read online that this flu strain, the vaccine, is less kind of efficient at preventing it. So for the people at home who've not taken up their offer to get that vaccine, do you think it's still worth taking up that offer?
It's definitely still worth it. It may not be as effective to prevent it happening altogether, but it will make the flu less severe. It means you're less likely to end up in hospital. It's similar to the COVID vaccine, which we discovered didn't prevent COVID very well, but what it did do was prevent severe COVID, which led to hospitalisation.
And just for the people at home, obviously we're getting into festive season, we've got office parties, family gatherings, so what can people do to help themselves and others to prevent against this virus, just quickly?
We want you to have fun. That's the reality of it. If you have got flu, don't go. and also be aware of the fact that you may have colleagues or family who are more susceptible, more at risk, and in which case stay clear of them.
Dr. Spinks, thank you so much for your time and your insight as always. Now, winter can be a difficult time for many, which is why so many across the county strive to help those in need, such as in Maidstone, where the council's donation hub has been helping people facing financial hardship. After our community reporter Henry Luck covered this story earlier this month, the hub saw a flurry of donations. So let's take a look back at the report, which you can find on our website, kmtv.co.uk.
December and the hunt for Christmas presents is finally on, but for many across Maidstone, it's impossible to find gifts whilst making ends meet. That's where Maidstone Borough Council's Christmas Hub comes in. This scheme, which has been running for the past 3 years now, allows Maidstone residents to donate a variety of items from food, toys and games towards charities across the town to give those who are struggling this Christmas.
For some of them, Christmas can be a really lonely time. Knowing that people in their community have thought about them and have donated these wonderful gifts is really humbling. And on Christmas Day, when they open a gift and they know that somebody that they don't know personally has taken time to buy that for them and it's then been wrapped, a label put on with their name, is really lovely, and it shows them that they're not forgotten.
Unlike some of the other charities here, we're after really specific things like instant hot foods that we use for our street population. A lot of us are tucking into Christmas dinners and things. Some of our street population don't have anything, so when we're out on a Saturday night, we can help them with instant hot food.
Although donations have decreased significantly compared to previous years, the Borough Council remains confident that it can still make a positive impact in the community.
Well, they might be a bit low at the moment. You probably saw the street pastors on the first day didn't have nothing, but the next day they had £1,000 worth of stuff come in. So it's a day by day. It can't really judge it till it's finished, but in my personal view, people of Maidstone are very generous, and when we look back on this, probably in the new year, you'll find that Maidstone contributed quite a lot to the happiness of people at Maidstone.
The hub will be open until Saturday, the 6th of December. With the big day fast approaching, many are hoping for a miracle on Maidstone Street. Henry Luck for KMTV in Maidstone.
From an East and West Kent derby to a first Dan black belt in Canterbury, there's plenty more sports news from the weekend. We'll take a look at the fourth round draw for the FA Trophy that sees non-league sides Chatham Town and Ebbsfleet facing off against higher league opposition and see what's new in Kent cricket. Here's Vin McDermott with your sports headlines.
Now, Ebbsfleet and Chatham fans would have been hoping for an early Christmas present this season in the form of a favourable draw for the fourth round of the FA Trophy. Chatham managed a 3-0 thrashing of Plymouth Parkway and have been gifted a home tie against the National League's Carlisle United, while Ebbsfleet will face off with Forest Green Rovers from the same league. The Chats have never gotten this far in the knockout tournament before and had beat Needham Market, Waltham Abbey and Wimborne Town as well to get them to the last 32. Chatham Women's have also made it to the fourth round, but of the Women's FA Cup. They'll play at home to another Tier 4 side, York City Ladies, in the next round and have overcome some higher league opponents like AFC Wimbledon and Exeter City, and also managed to beat Sutton United 3-0 at the weekend. But aside from cup fixtures, the weekend also held a Kent derby, where Folkestone Invicta fans were spoilt with yet another victory, their 9th in a row this season, this time away to Dartford. We can hear a bit from assistant manager Lloyd Blackman about that win.
Yeah, it was a typical Kent derby, I suppose, wasn't it? You know, there wasn't pitch is heavy. I don't think there was an awful lot of quality played in the first 45 minutes. So we knew it was going to be like that. That's what Kent derby's about, and ultimately pleased with the 3 points. That's the main thing. I still think there was areas that you know, we haven't been as good today as we have been previously. But as I say, the main thing was the victory and the 3 points. So that's what obviously we're delighted with.
Now to cricket, where opening batsman Ben Compton says he hopes he's proved his worth to Kent fans after signing for the county. While Kent have struggled recently, he's been credited as a standout performer in the side despite some limited first-team appearances. He said he was 27 when he signed for Kent and didn't have much first-team experience but was very glad to be picked up by the side, adding he can't speak highly enough of backing players and giving them opportunities. Then he adds it's down to the player to improve and prove their worth. And a Canterbury martial arts instructor has been presented with a 20-year service award for his efforts to the sport locally. David Dunn joined Canton Martial Arts as a student in 2005 before getting his first Dan black belt in 2008 and his fourth Dan 13 years later. He's assisted and judged at numerous tournaments across the region too, as well as attending and assisting with seminars, gradings, demonstrations and charity events. Dunn said, "I've been involved in my students' development throughout their various grades, organised events and tried to lead from the front, pushing them all to be the best they can be." And that's all from me. See you soon for more of the sports headlines.
That's all for now, but we've got a short break coming up. Don't go anywhere. Next up, we're going to be speaking to our business expert, Tudor Price, from the Invicta Chamber of Commerce as unemployment hit 5.1% across the UK. We're also going to be chatting about Jane Austen's birthday. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you after the break. Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight live on KMTV. I'm Megan Shaw and here are your top stories on Tuesday the 16th of December. Fighting back. Medway School traffic fine revoked for inadequate signage.
Where is the proof that school streets are anything other than a cash cow?
Help us or we'll end up in the river. 800-year-old Canterbury building at threat of being washed away as charity calls for public support.
I think historically there is so much here that it would be heartbreaking if this building were to close permanently.
And still going strong. We take a look at the independent shops keeping the high street alive following Small Business Saturday.
We bring vibrance, we bring something different, it's exciting, we can pivot faster than the big boys, so there's always something new going on.
Our top story again tonight. A Medway man has managed to overturn his school streets fine at tribunal, opening up questions around the council's signage. Chris Lee says he wasn't aware Richmond Road was pedestrianised at school pickup times because there weren't warning signs on the neighbouring road. Medway Council say that their signage is legally compliant, but local democracy reporter Ollie Leader went down to see how easy these signs are to miss.
You might have seen one of these signs if you've been driving around Medway, warning you away from driving near certain schools at peak times when the roads there become pedestrianised. That is, if you can spot them. For Chris Lee, a lack of signs along Saunders Street meant he was hit with a fine, which he says was not his fault.
If you're not aware of something being there and there's no road signage on the road that you're travelling down before you get to a place where you can pick up a penalty notice, then yeah, it's a bit of a shock, but you then think to yourself, well, did I make a mistake? I need to check this out because I don't think that there's something right here.
Well, I got behind the wheel myself to take the same route as Chris and see what warnings there were for the school street.
So, just on the right here, is Saunders Street. This is the road Chris drove down and said there wasn't adequate signage warning him there's going to be a school street right at the end. As you can see, lots of cars, lots of vehicles, not a lot of signage for the school street. In fact, I can't see any warnings at all as we drive down here. We're coming up to the stop line now. You should be able to get a better look at the sign as we come up here. It should just about come into view. That right there is the only warning for coming from this direction that there is a school street along here.
Well, a reasonable person is not going to be looking at lampposts for every single sign. If it's overwordy, by the time you've even got halfway down it, you've gone past it.
It took Chris 2 months since getting the fine for him to receive this letter from the Traffic Penalty Tribunal, notifying him that his penalty notice had been overturned. And the adjudicator here doesn't mince any words. It says that sign right behind me, that is complicated and did not adequately convey that Richmond Road would become a school street.
Yeah, so look, I'm getting lots of feedback that some of the signage is opaque at best. It's not entirely clear when you're entering a school street scheme. This scheme is all about raising money. It's not about improving the lives of residents.
Medway Council say they have successfully defended a number of appeals at this location. And this is the first in which an adjudicator has found against them on signage grounds. They say that while they will review the adjudicator's decision, they remain satisfied that the signage at this site is adequate and compliant with the relevant legal standards, and will continue to review feedback to ensure the scheme operates effectively. But none of that will be a sign that gives people like Chris confidence their concerns are being heard. Ollie Leader in Medway.
Small business owners across Kent have been speaking about the joys and challenges of setting up shop in the county, following Small Business Saturday earlier this month, which celebrated independent shops across the UK. It comes as the economy continues to struggle in a turbulent global climate, but many are still holding out hope, as our reporter David Brooks-Horsley has been finding out.
December 6th marked Small Business Saturday, a day to celebrate their huge impact on the nation. With over 5.45 million small businesses in the UK, the day encourages us to show our support by spending and shopping locally. I caught up with 2 business owners to understand what this day means, as well as the challenges and triumphs faced as an independent store. The business Happy and Glorious succeeds in selling small British-made gifts.
So I waited until I was 34. It was the year of the London Olympics and it was the year of the Jubilee, and everyone was feeling very positive, so I thought I'm going to set up a shop selling British-made gifts. I love running a small business. It's always different, it's always exciting. I get to talk to people all day, I get to surround myself with beautiful things, I get to go shopping on an enormous scale because I'm buying for the business. Yeah, it's varied, I get to work with great people. I'm just really, really lucky.
Unravel and Unwind is not only a crafting store but also a place to come together as a community through crafting clubs and workshops.
A lot of people see shops on the high street as just being a shop. You go in, you buy something, you leave. The difference with our business is it's a community first and a shop second, so you're making those connections, and it's with such a wide demographic of people. So I like the idea of postbox toppers, putting crochet and knitting artwork out there in the public eye to put a smile on people's faces, and I found a lovely group of people that also enjoy doing that. So since 2023 we did the TARDIS, we've done a Pokemon trail around Gillingham Town Centre during the Easter holidays for the children, and the current project that we've just finished is making gifts for elderly residents in care homes who don't necessarily get gifts at Christmas.
I asked some of the crafting group what these clubs mean for them and why we should support small businesses and what the high street would look like without them.
Well, the fact that I've met some wonderful people, and it helps my mental health, homegrown stuff, homemade, which I think is really important for this country as well.
Supporting small businesses is clearly the way to go. David Brooks-Horsley for KMTV in Gillingham.
And on the topic of businesses, earlier today I spoke to our business expert Tudor Price from the Kent Invicta Chamber of Commerce to talk about businesses who have struggled to keep up with rising national insurance contributions, higher wages and now higher levels of unemployment in the UK. Thank you so much for joining us, Tudor. So first of all, unemployment in the UK as of October has risen to 5.1%. That is staggering. That is 1 in 20 people. So what are your thoughts on that?
Sadly, it doesn't come as a surprise. This is partly due to the national insurance contribution from employers going up at the last budget. That put the brakes on most recruitment. I think if you talk to a lot of business leaders, they found that very difficult to try and sort of rework their budgets and take that into consideration. So when people were leaving businesses, they weren't looking to replace. Now, that is then on top of a sort of slightly subdued economic growth. And obviously that means that many businesses are perhaps being cautious about investing in expansion, new projects and stuff. And so they're just not taking the staff on just yet.
I see. I was doing a bit of reading as well, and I read that the rise of the unemployment coming up to October is also meant to reflect businesses freezing hiring until they knew the terms of the budget and how it might affect them. So now we do know the Chancellor's policies. Do you think businesses have an incentive to start hiring again? Do you think Rachel Reeves' budget was one that's encouraging employment?
So the budget was very much one for the markets. I think it was about messaging to the investment houses that there's a stable and sort of fiscally responsible government in place. What it didn't do was really put in place many incentives or encouragement for growth. So you're quite right in that many businesses held off any recruitment plans pending the outcome of the budget. It was fairly low level from a business perspective. Most businesses are fairly indifferent. There wasn't a tremendous amount to encourage them to sort of carry on investing. So, yes, we'll probably see a little bit of movement in the market. We may see that figure come down from 5.1 slightly, but I don't think it's going to be a mass sort of exodus towards recruiting new employees.
Of course, and within this figure, I think we have to address that young people in particular seem to be struggling the most. We saw the unemployed 18 to 24-year-olds has increased by 85,000 in the 3 months up to October. So why do you think young people in particular are feeling the brunt of this?
I think this is really difficult. There's those entry-level jobs that are really where many employers are sort of holding back at the moment. So where they've got existing staff, as I said, people leave, they're not replacing them. We have seen a bit of investment in training and development for existing staff to try and make them more employable and more productive. So it means that those entry-level jobs that traditionally were sort of made available because people were sort of moving on and being replaced, they're not there. And in particular, we're quite concerned about the number of young graduates who are sort of struggling to find meaningful employment, given that they've obviously sort of incurred quite a bit of debt and have sort of committed themselves to study for the last few years. And if we're not careful, employers need to sort of try and, where they can, create opportunities to make sure that we don't lose that talent.
We've got a short break now, but coming up, exciting things. We're celebrating Jane Austen's 250th birthday with some strong Kent connections, and we're getting a sneak peek at the brand new episode of News Nugget. So don't go anywhere, and we'll see you after the break. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight Live on KMTV. Now, in breaking news, a busy stretch of the M20 has reopened following a crash, but drivers are still facing long delays. The coastbound carriageway between junctions 8 and 9 was closed after a van hit the barrier at around 11 this morning, spilling oil across the road. One person was taken to hospital. The route reopened just after 5:30, but queues of more than an hour remain in both directions. It comes on the first day of Operation Brock restarting to tackle a high volume of Christmas traffic. Sorry about that.
Kent and Medway Resilience Forum received data from both Eurotunnel and the Port of Dover when there is a holiday period of forecasted bookings. And from that, we can assess what the likely possible impact is going to be on the road network in and around East Kent specifically. This time round, Port of Dover have shown that Friday and Saturday are going to be very busy down at the port. It's a very busy freight time as well because an awful lot of the HGVs are heading back to Europe as well for Christmas, as well as all the tourists heading over to Europe.
Now, there's plenty of quirky and eyebrow-raising stories that can be found on our website. That's kmtv.co.uk. Like this one about beatboxing bins, which is sure to put a smile on your face.
Thank you for giving me some litter.
Say hello to Chatham's first bin that's both on the beat and ready to drop the beat, rewarding diligent litter pickers.
And here is the beatboxing bin. This is how it works. You throw away your litter.
Just beats and I'm emptying the trash in the bin.
And the bin lets you know. It says thank you.
Funded by Arts Council England, the bins are part of an initiative to boost creativity among children and foster good environmental habits for life.
This project is a project between Medway Council and Ideas Test. And it's a creative health project, so it's a focus on Luton and Brompton, two specific areas, thinking about how creativity can help improve health, either from a physical perspective, well-being perspective, or an environmental perspective. It started with a consultation with community members about what, particularly for Luton, what it is that they wanted to see change. And they articulated that litter was a big thing, and they also articulated that if we were going to think about creative ways to solve or help litter issues, that actually a good place to start was with young people.
The bin's 40 different voices, among beatboxer Rupert Aldridge, include children from local schools, Luton Primary and Phoenix Primary School. Getting children excited about the bins through beatboxing sessions played a key role.
The teacher who taught us how to beatbox, we come on most Wednesdays, where then when we beatbox and have some beatboxing battles.
I love beatboxing first of all, and also it's good for the environment, like Martin said, so we can pick up litter and just help the world.
It's a joint project from Ideas Test and Medway Council, but our 8 singing bins along Luton Road, more trash than treasure, where Medway already has significant problems on its plate.
People's idea of what art and culture is different for everybody. It's like not everyone's going to be inspired by going to a theatre or painting or something like that. But it's all forms of culture. I think music's particularly great at involving lots of people, and obviously like kind of that beatbox culture comes out of a culture which isn't from privilege and all those kind of things. So I think it's a great way in really.
And with the bin ready to freestyle, there was only one thing left to do. Celebrate, of course, with a beatboxing match, the only rappers welcome on Luton Road for the foreseeable. Megan Shaw for KMTV in Chatham.
Please do not pollute the earth.
Now, let's take a look at the weather over the coming days. This evening, some cloudy skies for Kent, temperatures reaching highs of 9 in Margate and Dover. Tomorrow morning, more cloud, though some brighter spells for Ashford and Canterbury, highs of 6. Into the afternoon, cloudy skies continuing, temperatures rising to 9 and 10 degrees across the board. And for your outlook over the next few days, Thursday we'll see some rain moving in, highs reaching 12, sunny on Friday, surprisingly in December for 10 degrees, and 10 on Saturday. Lots of cloud, but looking like no festive snow. And many people will be marking today as only 9 days until Christmas, but it also marks the 250th birthday of Jane Austen, the acclaimed 18th century novelist whose sense and sensibilities as a writer were inspired by the county. Her brother even lived at Godmersham Park, which served as inspiration for some of her most famous works. And it was that manor house that celebrated a costume celebration for Austen's birthday, which Olivia Tullett told us all about earlier.
So really, Godmersham is all about inheritance, lots and lots of very fortunate inheritance, depending on who you ask. I don't think Jane was necessarily too happy with the family changing from Austen to Knight, but essentially what happens is Thomas Knight, who lives at Godmersham, and his wife have no living heirs to pass the Godmersham inheritance and the Chorlton inheritance on to the next generation. So they decide to get in contact with their very distant relatives. I believe they were distant cousins, the Austens, and they take a particular liking to Henry's third son, which is Edward Knight, and he's a very, very conscientious young man. They think he'd be perfect for running a large estate and taking on that kind of responsibility. So they decide to take him on their honeymoon, which is obviously very unusual by today's standards. But they love him on that honeymoon, and they decide that he is going to be the heir, and he is Jane's brother. So that is the link, and she ends up being, plunged into a new life of wealth because of this inheritance.
Wow, and obviously Jane Austen has always been a huge literary figure, and especially at Godmersham. What were the conversations leading up to her birthday within the team like?
Yes, we were all really excited. I was relatively new to the team at the time when we started to talk about the 250th anniversary. So yes, I was so excited because it was not only a new project, but it was such good timing for the anniversary. And we were really just discussing about how we could best tap into her legacy in new ways as well, not just talking about kind of the same general kind of Austen things that are known. And we have that link through Godmersham Park with her brother. So we were so excited to present something kind of new to the public for her 250th anniversary.
And I have to know, how did you celebrate the birthday?
So we actually had an event at Godmersham, which was, we had some live music. We did a birthday tea with a birthday cake, and everybody sang happy birthday. So yes, it was a lovely day, and lots of people came to celebrate Jane Austen's very, very big birthday.
And Olivia, tell us, what was the atmosphere like? So I'm aware you tried to create an environment that Austen herself would have known with the Regency era music and spoken performance, is that right?
Yes, so we had a wonderful performance from Simon Stallard, and he played the flute, and he also sang in Gaelic, which was amazing. And he was really kind of presenting music from her time, or music that she would have liked. And we had that in the Great Hall with the fire lit, so, very familiar sight to Jane. And then we had the birthday tea in the orangery.
And there were even some guests in Regency era costume. We can see them now. So tell us a bit about that.
Yes, people always make the effort. I think whenever we encourage people to come in Regency costume, they're secretly quite excited about it. So when we had our events in the summer as well, people, they make such an amazing effort, and everybody looked wonderful.
Great, I wish I was there, honestly. And you also have a heritage centre where people can learn more about Godmersham Park. So do you see quite a lot of Jane Austen enthusiasts coming through the doors?
Yes, we do. We get quite a mix of people. So we get some people from the Jane Austen Society who obviously know, sometimes more than we do. And then we also get people who have just seen, the movie adaptations, and they would like to learn more. And we also have a few researchers come and use, we have a few first edition kind of maps and things from the park that gives you a really good insight to what the park would have looked like in Jane's day. So yeah, we got a real mixture of people come and visit us.
And that's almost everything from us on Kent Tonight. But don't go anywhere, as after the break we'll have a brand new episode of News Nuggets. Here's a sneak peek.
Hello, I'm Ab Abby and welcome to News Nuggets. This week we'll be learning about accessibility and inclusivity. But what do these two things really mean?
Inclusivity is how much you include people. Accessibility is how much you can access things. For example, does your school have ramps? This would make school accessible for people in wheelchairs. Maybe your school has a sensory room. This can be a quiet place where you focus on your senses to feel calm. Some people get overwhelmed by their senses and things can feel loud. Having a sensory room would be inclusive because more people can join in at school if they have a room like this to help them when they need it.
Hello, both of you.
Hello. Hi.
You're going to be taking me on a tour of your school, but we're starting here at a boat. Why do you have a boat at your school?
Why not?
Good answer.
Exactly, why not?
This is so cool!
This is our sensory story stack area.
We're in a plane right now.
In a plane?
We're in a plane, I can't believe it!
And isn't the feel of the grass lovely? At times reading can be hard, can't it, for our pupils, and so we want people to love reading and to really want to come to this space.
Do you think you'd want to read more often?
Yes.